Hello, thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. I'm just noticing that it's starting to snow, which is quite different climate-wise than where I'm from, which is San Francisco. So I'm looking out there with trepidation and excitement to be here. Before I started with my presentation, I wanted to ask a question. How many of you work with unlimited budgets and resources to promote your books? Unlimited personnel? Nobody. How many, did you look around the room? Okay, yeah, sorry. How many of you work at what you would consider to be a small, independent company? Medium-sized? Mostly small. All right, so we have something in common. I'm small and independent too. And today, as I was thinking about my presentation and what I wanted to talk to you about, what I first wanted to say is please feel free to interrupt me because I don't want to death march you through a bunch of slides. Please feel free to ask any questions, ask for clarification. I'm glad to pause and help connect the dots. And when I was thinking about all the ground that I had to cover, I thought, you know, I'm not going to be an e-commerce content producer expert today. I was thinking about looking at the tech industry and the place where I reside, and I was thinking, connecting the dots, I think I want to be more like an astrologer. I want to be connecting stars into constellations with stories that go around it, you know, like a horoscope. So hopefully by the end I'll have been able to point out some dots, although everybody's done such a good job today in talking about their own content constellations. You're going to hear a lot of the same themes in this talk as well. So I was going to start off with some big sweeping statements to kick off looking at this broad landscape. The first one, less is more, and I'm assuming that all the editors, poets, and Zen masters are nodding in agreement to this, less is more. When in actuality, any 3-year-old could tell you, less is not more, right? 10 pieces of candy is definitely more than 3. Gives you more to share, more to hoard. It's a ridiculous statement, right? Less is more. It doesn't make sense. This makes sense. More is more. I can get behind this, and I am a full fan of having more, and I think we all would be. You know, more square footage in your apartment, more money in your bank account, more budget and resources to promote your titles. All of those things would make more sense. What we're coming into, though, and what I want to talk to you about today, is that we're seeing that more, instead of being more, is actually less. And the way I'm going to illustrate that is I have some graphs. Any good consultant always has some graphs to show you that represent about 18 years' worth of data collected from a single consistent subject. It represents a time block from 7 a.m. in the morning until 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, and the tasks that are performed in that block. Okay? So here's my first very scientific graph. This, ladies and gentlemen, is my morning pie. So this is how I spent my time pre-internet in the morning from about 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So you can see how it's divided up. This is my attempt at an emoticon. That's my cat. So you can see we've got some media consumption in there, TV, public radio, coffee, very important with exclamation points, my toilette, that was my French for today, and the snooze button. This is my less is more, right? And now we're going to flash forward a little bit later, or a little bit more current. I'm owning my own business. It's e-commerce and content. This is the same 2-hour period, but the morning pie is divided up into more slices. I've still got snooze. Coffee now has two exclamation points. The cat's in there. I'm using email as my primary means of running my business and communicating with both friends and family. I'm just now starting to get into blogs, the Sartorialist. Did anybody read Sartorialist when it first came out? Wonderful street photography. Yes. And the NewYorkTimes.com. And because I ran an e-commerce company, I subscribed to a lot of emails because I was checking out all the marketing. Marketing was primarily coming via email, right? It was the mirror of direct marketing. And as a result, I spent a lot of money on shoes. I developed a little shoe problem during this time because Neiman Marcus in particular was very good with their morning emails. And reading the morning emails led to shopping online. So they were very, very effective. But you can see the progression. Now we're going to flash forward to today, and I have to say, when I drew this pie, this very scientific graph that you see here, I was embarrassed. And I'm embarrassed because there's too much going on here. And I think this too much exists in almost everybody's life. Can I see a show of hands? Does this look remotely like your mornings? Yes? Raise them high. I want to see it like, oh, wow, a lot, right? All right, so you recognize yourself in this pie. And the reason why I bring this up is not to just embarrass myself. Oh, and this, I've done another little emoticon. This is email. It's much smaller now. I do this because a lot of times we think about who we're marketing to, the audience that we want to develop. That's what I want to kind of focus on is audience development. As this exotic creature that we're chasing, like, oh, we're going to reach this audience, blah, 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 or we want to get this demographic. And that person is us, right? This is me. You have to get my attention through the thicket of this morning pie. And so what happens here, particularly in this part, and in this part, this says Slack. I don't know, probably not too many of you use Slack. You may use Slack, yeah. What happens during this period of time? Sometimes I find things that are related to, thank you, because I'm just walking and talking. Does it need to be turned on? Yes? Oh, good. Sometimes I find things that are applicable to work, applicable to you today. This was in the New York Times. I was quite surprised to find out that Bill Gates is selling lots of books. You may not be so surprised about that. But apparently his blog where he reviews mostly science and tech books, and I'm seeing some nods, is like, he's like the Oprah of books these days. So sometimes I find things that are valuable to work. Sometimes I get caught in BuzzFeed's video channel. This is also particularly embarrassing. This is a video about waffles versus pancakes. I'm Team Waffle, for the record. And the unfortunate thing is that this kind of content consumption takes the same amount of time as it does when I'm doing something more important or revenue generating. And then sometimes I'm actually contributing to social media. This is a really cute picture of Johnny Cash with a kitten. And I posted this to a private Facebook group that I belong to called We Like Cats. And so here I am, this consultant. I've been working in e-commerce and content for the past 20 years. And I'm spending, a good part of my time reposting content from other people into my various social media streams. And by the way, if you haven't ever checked out Blank on Blank, it's really actually quite fun and lovely. But this is an Instagram posted to Facebook. So why is this happening? This is happening because technology is doing something that it does best, which is remove barriers. It's removed the barrier to storytelling and content creation and distribution. And that's wonderful, right? I heard once on a public radio report that what digital audio workstations have done is meant that there are more musicians, more people making music, but fewer professional musicians. And how can you be against that? Like, you can't say, well, I don't want more people to make music. That's terrible. You want everybody to be creative. You want everybody to be able to express themselves. Now we're getting into the more is more, right? So you get a lot of, when you remove those barriers, you get a lot of people participating on both the creation side and the consumption side. And, that creates a glut that you have to break through. This is one of my favorite things to play. This is talking about, this is Stefan Sagmeister talking about the new revolution in storytelling.
Okay. Hi, my name is Stefan Sagmeister. I am an Austrian graphic designer who lives and works in New York City. Well, I'm actually quite critical of the storytelling field. I think that all the storytellers are not storytellers. Like recently I read an interview with somebody who designs roller coasters and he referred to himself as a storyteller. No, fuckhead, you are not a storyteller, you're a roller coaster designer. And that's fantastic. And more power to you. But why would you want to be a storyteller if you design roller coasters? Or if you are storytelling, then the story that you tell is bullshit. It's like this little itsy bitsy little thing. Yes, you go through the space and yes, you see other spaceships and yes, that's your story. That's a fucking bullshit story. That's boring. People who actually tell stories, meaning people who write novels and make feature films, don't see themselves as storytellers. It's all the people who are not storytellers, who kind of for strange reasons, because it's in the air, suddenly now want to be storytellers. There is this fallacy out there. I mean, I don't think that I fell for it, but somehow, maybe unconsciously I did. That you sort of feel, I've seen a lot of films, so I must be able to do one. And of course, this is the most stupidest thought ever. It's like, oh, I've watched the Philharmonic, that's why I'm a virtuoso violin player. Well, I'm not, even though I've watched a lot of Philharmonic concerts. I think by now, in our space, meaning in the space of design, it sort of took on the mantle of bullshit. Now everybody's a storyteller.
I'm glad that resonated. I was a little bit worried about that. I usually have this going on. I usually play this in all of my talks, so I'm glad that it went over well. I was a little bit nervous. The humor came through. So what is reinforcing this? What is reinforcing this idea of storytelling, of unlimited creation? I think it's social. It is the reinforcement that you get through your social networks from sharing. From me sharing Johnny Cash with a kitten or whatever it is, things from my life on my Instagram. All of these pieces are becoming... how could I say this? A self-reinforcing circle, I guess. And it's happening in every single type of media that we consume. I produced a radio documentary about 1.5 years ago, co-produced it with a very talented co-producer, Vanessa Loeb, and interviewed Gus Van Sant. Do y'all know Gus Van Sant, who that is? Okay. This is a quote from him, an outtake that we did not use in the documentary. And I have to say, it was really surreal to be talking to Gus Van Sant, who admitted that, probably while I was watching cat gifs in the morning in my morning pie, he was watching a baby goat on YouTube jumping from one piece of wood to the other. So it's really reinforcing not only the fact that people are sharing more things from their lives, more things from other media sources, but also the duration, right, of what we're willing to watch and what's available to us and what's capturing our attention. Even that, you noticed in that morning pie that it was a bigger slice, but it had more things going in to it. That's the duration piece. So what I wanted to put forth to you today is that actually these days social is publishing. And if you don't already think of social streams not only as a method of discovery for your titles and your works, it's also a competitor. Because when I'm watching Johnny Cash with a Kitten or Waffles versus Pancakes, that's taking time away from looking for a book, no matter if it's an ebook, a paper book, whatever. It's both a help and competition. So how do you counteract free and abundant? How do you counteract what is coming and being fed to us through these social streams? Well, I'm not going to lie, money always helps. That's why I asked that first question. This cracked me up. I just got finished binge watching Sensitive Skin. I thought it was great. I thought Kim Cattrall's clothes were divine in this show. And I don't know who this guy is, Bill Brieux, but I love this quote. He said, why don't people know more about this? And it says, is this another example of a Canadian media companies not budgeting enough to get their shows announced through the clutter? So money definitely always helps. But what I think you should also take a look at is something that Google has handily called micro moments. Believe it or not. Uncle Google, always friendly. This is actually from a website called Think with Google that you can access yourself. This isn't proprietary or secret. Google wants you to know everything about how you could work with Google products. There are actually 4 moments. I blew it up so you could see 3. They're talking about capturing people in the in-betweens when they're connected to the most intimate device that they now own, which is their phone, right? So you want to catch people in the stream, the I want to go moments, the I want to do moments, the I want to buy moments. And so how do you do that? And I think a lot of people have actually touched on this today. The first thing you need to do is be relevant. And you need to be relevant to that audience that you think will enjoy that title, right? You have to have realness. I think people have called it different things, like being true to your brand, being true to your story. You have to have a real authenticity. And then I'm going to add a last one, rhythm, which means looking at the social media stream, looking at current events, and figuring out how you can surf the wave. So instead of reading, writing, and arithmetic, I've got relevance, realness, and rhythm. So how do you do that? This is like the Holy Grail. I wanted to give you some examples of what I've been seeing in technology to help address some of these problems. These examples are actually from Matter, which is a public or a media accelerator, a design thinking media accelerator where I am a mentor. And all of these companies are media companies. They're trying to find micro moments. They're trying to find relevance. They're trying to find rhythm. And so these are just some examples of what they're doing to address what they see as the challenges of audience development in modern life. This is Hearken. This is a screenshot of their homepage. I love this homepage. It makes me laugh. Questions are the new comments. What? This is meant for newsrooms. And essentially, this is a platform whereby a newsroom can put out a poll to the community, ask the community what topics they want to see covered. Topics can then be upvoted, and then a journalist will be assigned to it to report on the topic. And the assumption is that you've already built an audience that's interested, that's committed, that has some stakes, right? Because if you voted on the topic, if you put forth a topic, if you got your friends to upvote the topic, the idea is when the piece is published, you're going to read it, you're going to like it, and you're going to share it. And this becomes increasingly important as newsrooms, lots of media companies are rewarding content creators on likes and shares. So if it is important to you as a reporter to get that bump or that bonus because your article has been liked or shared, you want to have that built-in community to do that. The next one is called Huzzah. Huzzah is a startup that allows musicians to live stream mini concerts right from their house. And this is a screenshot taken from their demo. You don't get more intimate and micro than this dude from his bedroom. Pretty incredible. I have to say, I was pretty impressed with this just because the quality of the live stream was pretty excellent. What's going on here? He's able to bypass a label, bypass a venue. No need to book a venue, right? Promise an X amount of people to come in, promise X amount of people to buy drinks. He can have his concert from the privacy and security of his bedroom. Over here, there's a chat window. Can y'all see that? I don't know if you can or not. So everybody who's tuned in to see his concert can ask him questions, ask him to play his next song, tell him how awesome he is. They can buy him a beer. They can clap. They can upload a selfie. Don't you love this? This is great, right? And they can encourage other friends to follow him. So what we're looking at is a micro event on a small scale that an independent person can do, right, with very little money, where he can connect directly with his fans, sell them merchandise, sell them posters, right, and thereby increase his reach. This next one is called Verbatim. And the only reason I have a screenshot of their product up is they bill themselves as a mobile storytelling platform for millennials. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, why not a mobile storytelling platform for me? You know, I'm not a millennial. I'd like to be able to do that. Their theory is that millennials are more often and more connected with their phone. They want to be able to create their stories incorporating photos and video, music directly on their phone and then share it. Okay, sounds pretty typical. I've seen a lot of these different types of platforms. What I thought was so interesting about Verbatim is the fact that they allow each person to divide up their life into channels. So, just thinking about that morning pie and micro events and how we're getting sliced into smaller and smaller fragments, I thought this was really interesting because it kind of jumps over that whole effect in Facebook where you get defriended for your social or political or religious views. A person, your friend, doesn't have to follow that part of you. They could just follow your fashion channel or your social justice channel or your We Love Cats channel. And it skips over everything else. So it really acknowledges the fact that as we are all producing all of these different types of content, telling all of these stories about our lives and passing along the content from Pitchfork and other places, not everybody's interested in everything. So it allows, just like Google saying, like micro moments, what are we doing? It allows your audience just to tune into that part of you that they want to see. And the last one that I wanted to show you, this is Mingyan, two very savvy female entrepreneurs. They're great. They were already kind of up and going before they joined the accelerator. They are leveraging a platform and some relationships to allow celebrities to grow their brand in China. And you can see Shaquille O'Neal up at the top. Lucky Blue Smith, who I had no idea who that was until they told me. Apparently, he's like a Instagram hottie model that is just really big in China. Pitbull, also very big in China. But essentially, it's a kind of a version of Huzzah. So it allows each celebrity to host a micro event where they might ask something as simple as, what T-shirt should I wear at my next concert? What song would you like to hear me sing? Should I do a new sneaker? And fans can weigh in, and of course I hate to use this word, but I'm going to whip it out, monetized, with merchandise and other forms of e-commerce. This isn't you can't really see the platform itself, but you can see how it's been organized. So just further proof that what I'm seeing in the landscape in terms of like new ideas on how to reach people, even though it's the era of big data, what they're really trying to do is pinpoint micro events, these certain channels, these aspects. And these tools are just going to keep growing, right? This isn't the end of this type of thinking. What these do all have in common, though, is that they're pre-money. None of these are actually up-and-going businesses. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm also seeing in terms of innovation for revenue and business models. Before I get to that point, does anybody have any questions so far? Thoughts, ideas? Anybody? Okay. I don't see anything. All right. So I'm going to keep going. So the first one that everybody knows all too well, and I could rant on for a long time about this. You should catch me at the networking thing after I've had a drink. I can talk about advertising and what I think it's done to the internet. So I'm not going to cover that because I don't want you to see me sweat or cry or curse. But that drives also a lot of what's happening within social, also with Google, the other discovery engine that we talk about. But the two other things that are happening are subscription and sponsorship. And there's always a lot of innovation going on in terms of like, how can we get different ways for people to spend their money and find value on their media. Make this good. How many of you heard of the silent history? Oh, okay. So silent history, this was really interesting. Eli Horowitz, who was at McSweeney's, went out on his own and created the silent history. I went to a talk that he did in San Francisco about a year or so ago. It was really great. He was very honest, and I found it really interesting. The silent history came out as a serialized app. It wasn't an ebook in the traditional sense. You bought it in the App Store, and they released, I think it was like a chapter a day. It consisted of what they called 120 field reports and testimonials. What that really meant was they had 30 writers contributing to this. 30, I think that's right. I think I'm remembering that right. 30 writers. And the reason that they used a field report format, and I hesitate to tell you what the book is about because I don't want to spoil it for anybody in case you're going to like download it this evening. It's actually quite good. The reason they had testimonials, which is like oral history reports and field reports, is to cover the fact that they had all of these different writers with different voices. So it didn't require a lot of editing. It's really brilliant. And they packaged it all together for iPad and iPhone. And by the time I bought it, I think I paid $4.99. I got the first 20 chapters or so, and then would have to pay more for subsequent chapters when I was hooked. The other unique thing that they did was they added a geolocation layer. So if there were locations in the book and you were standing, I think, within 10 meters of that location, it would actually unlock a physical energy that you have within your resources and your budget, and make a plan and make choices and then stick with it, right? Because in the end, effort is what's going to make a lot of difference. And for you not to be worried that you're deluding yourself by making all of these different types of forays into content, whether that's live events, etc. Everybody's doing it. I don't know if you recognize it. This is Ira Glass, who's really famous in the United States for his public radio show. This is him with 2 dancers in a show that he made called 3 Acts, 2 Dancers, 1 Radio Host. They had confetti cannons, people, right? I mean, this is serious. So, I would encourage you not to feel beleaguered about the effort that it takes to make all of these experiences. It's really delightful, and I think it's a real opportunity. What we're seeing now is that people are so open to a myriad of experiences, and as I was sitting here, I was wondering, like, what is a book anyway? You know, what if you were, and this is just me, like, you know, riffing off the top of my head, what if you were more just production houses, and every time you looked at a writer, an artist, you were thinking about the best way to produce the story that they had to tell, right? Whether that's an ebook or only a paper book, or, you know, whatever it is. And then think about how you would market that and develop that audience. Very quickly, and I put this in just when I was upstairs, this is NewsWhip. This is a way of finding out what is trending on Twitter and Facebook. I believe this is free, and you can look and choose by which part of the world, you know, you want to, you know, you filter this way, and then you can see in real time what's trending. So when I was talking about rhythm, there are tools out there where you don't have to like sweat it out or guess. You can actually look to see what's happening. So, I guess I'm now at the end. I hope I haven't gone over. I feel like I have. I hope this has kind of connected the dots between content creation, distribution, and business model. Please feel free to come talk to me. I've got a lot of background in e-commerce and content, and I'm happy to speak to you during the breaks or this evening at the networking. Thank you.